Hi everyone, so I've got a fan on in the background. Hopefully you can't hear it and hopefully it isn't too distracting with it moving my hair around, but it's just too hot in this room without it. So this is a post-chemo update video, and the first thing that I wanted to talk about was my cancer relapse scare that I had. About 2-3 weeks ago, I finally got confirmation from my doctor that the blood test looked good, because it took me a while to get an appointment with the doctor. I think I was just avoiding it, or I was trying to go to my specialist, but my specialist is too busy. So I decided to just go to my GP, my general doctor, and go see them. And she was able to, do a feel to see if my lymph nodes seemed too enlarged and give me a blood test. And in that appointment, I ended up crying, which surprised me because I'm generally really good like that when it comes to doctors and cancer, especially the first time that I went through it all. I never cried with the doctors, and so it just seems strange that for just a little relapse scare that I would cry, but I guess I understand why, because I don't want to have to go through all of that again. When I was going through it the first time, I didn't really know what I was really getting myself into, but now I know how hard it was. I know all the months it took out of me, just for treatment, but then for recovery. I'm really happy where my life is at. And for that to be disrupted the way that cancer disrupts life, I just didn't want that to happen. So I'm just really glad that everything's been confirmed. Everything looks okay. I just have another cancer checkup with my specialist in February. So I can just say goodbye to all that anxiety. And I'll be talking a lot more about anxiety later in the video, because that's something that I've been really struggling with the last couple of months and just a year in general. But I would just say that with this cancer relapse scare, I'm just annoyed looking back on the last 2 months, how much of my time I gave to anxiety, how much stress I carried in my body because of anxiety. And I know that it was because of a relapse scare, and that is really valid, and most people would be terrified and find it very hard to function with that kind of anxiety, with those thoughts. But to me, it really frustrates me because this is my life now. I have to deal with these relapse scares, and I know they're going to happen every now and again, and I just don't want my life to be impacted so severely by it. I don't want to stop working on my passion projects. I don't want my work or my study to be affected when I do have a relapse scare, but it does. It affects everything. So that's been something that I've been struggling with mentally. How do I work out a system? How do I live my life being a cancer survivor and not letting cancer relapse scares ruin months or take over months and control my life? That's something that I've been finding really difficult. And at the moment I'm okay because I felt like I got all the confirmation that I needed. I can let all of that go. But what happens when it happens again? How long will it affect me then? What will I do? Or is that just part of living as a cancer survivor? That's just the burden we have to take on, as all illnesses generally have some kind of burden. And I find that anxiety around cancer relapse is significant. And so if you already have work stresses, study stresses, stress happening in family, to have that cancer relapse scare, that anxiety on top of all of that just makes life overwhelming. That's why I start to shut down. I don't have time sometimes for friends or for family. I don't have time to do things that I love to do, like making videos or writing my books. All of a sudden, I don't feel like I have time for that, even though that's probably what would help me out. It's just, it takes up too much space in my mind, and 50% of my mental space is being taken up by either being anxious about a cancer relapse scare, or that energy is invested into suppressing that anxiety, which takes a lot of energy to be able to suppress those thoughts, to keep you functioning day to day, going to work, doing your basic things. And so I think that's what makes me want to take less risks with study and work and even with family, because if I take risks in those domains of life, then there's a lot of anxiety associated with those risks, even if they're good risks. They're risks to help me have a better quality of life or be happier in those domains. But with those risks, that means that I need other areas of my life doing well. And if I'm taking a lot of risks at work, I feel like if I ever had a cancer relapse scare again, or something was going on with cancer that I was really struggling with, that it would be too much. That anxiety would be way too overwhelming, and I'd be worried that I would break down because there's just too much going on. But I can't not take risks when it comes to work or study or with family or relationships. in fear that I might have a cancer relapse scare, and then in those instances that it'd be overwhelming. If that happens, which I'm sure it will one day, I would just need to, you know, reach out to more resources, go out and see a psychologist, get a counselor, maybe go to the GP, see if there are meds that could help me out, or spend a lot more time meditating, or, you know, create a lot of boundaries in other areas that are stressing me out. I will figure it out. That's what I need to tell myself. I will figure it out when I come to that place. But that is how my anxiety makes my world seem smaller at times, because the cancer anxiety is so great that I really don't want a lot of anxiety happening in other areas. So in terms of physical side effects, I'd say anxiety and chemo brain are still the worst. Once again, I'll talk more about anxiety in the later part of the video, and it kind of annoys me that I talk so much about anxiety, but that's just my life at the moment. Chemo brain is still affecting me. Like, the last week has been pretty social because of Christmas and New Year's, and I was with family. Then I was spending a couple of days with a friend of mine, and then I was spending New Year's Eve with a different group of friends, and that was really nice and awesome, but it was just way too much socializing. And while I feel like I am both introverted and extroverted, I think I'm probably more introverted. I get more energy from being alone, and I regain energy from being alone, but I just have really good social skills, and I really like spending time with people. So, but I think spending time with people exhausts me, which is why I think I lean more towards introvert, even though other people probably don't think I'm introverted because I'm not shy in social situations. But so the last week has been very social, and so I've been feeling really exhausted. And even for New Year's Eve, while it was an amazing experience, and I was really happy that I went with this group of friends and spent some time on a friend's farm, that was really, really fun. But I just felt really exhausted, and part of me just wanted to spend the night, even though it was New Year's Eve, spend the night alone at home, just writing. Because that's what I love to do, and I'd spent so much time socializing before then. But on New Year's Day, you know, after a week of socializing, I'm driving back with a friend, and I could just feel my brain starting to shut down. I could feel it misfiring. I could hear myself stumbling over my words way too much. I was just dropping words from sentences sometimes. And she knows that I've gone through cancer. She knows that I struggle with chemo brain sometimes. So I don't think she thought anything of it. And thankfully, I didn't really feel anxiety about it. I didn't really feel embarrassed by it. I was just talking, but I knew that I was stumbling over my words. I knew that I wasn't being succinct. I knew that I was screwing up more than normal. And I think in a way that would have been noticeable to other people. And that was because I was just really tired. Not only had I not had a great sleep the night before, because it was New Year's Eve, but it was kind of like interrupted. I'd like go to sleep, wake up for sunrise, go to sleep again. I'd been socializing too long. I hadn't had time to center myself and just feel rejuvenated. I hadn't noticed chemo brain really be a problem, especially in social settings, for quite a while. I'd say the last time was when I talked about it in a different video when it came to study for an assessment that I had. When I started getting really nervous, that's when I noticed chemo brain really crop up and affect the way that I was speaking. But then, yeah, yesterday it really impacted me. I could hear myself screwing up very severely and consistently. And even when I would take a moment to like figure out what I wanted to say and say it a little bit slower, I just felt my mind go blank multiple times. And that was okay because I could just be in that silence with that friend. But I wanted to say things. It's not that I wanted that silence. I wanted to say something, but it was just taking me a long time to create the sentence. And so chemo brain is still affecting me, but thankfully it seems to only crop up when I have severe anxiety or I'm exhausted, like yesterday. Other physical side effects, I'd say that I still have like cramping in my legs and feet every now and again. And so I've had to just figure out how to position myself when I sit down, things like that. Sometimes I still get pains in my hands. I think, especially because I do so much computer work, not only at work, but at home. I love writing on my laptop and I don't have a proper study desk, which I need to get. So when I write, it's not very ergonomic. And so I think that I put strain on my hand, especially this hand, my right hand, because that's the hand that I use the mouse. I need to get on top of that because I don't know if it's nerve damage related from chemo, but I think it's exacerbated by just my lifestyle. And I know that's something that a lot of people have who do work in offices. But I am also really young. I don't know if these kind of problems start as early as 26. I'm not sure, but every now and again I'll get nerve damage and I'll like massage my hand or massage where I'm getting the shooting pains. I don't think I've really talked about this recently, but I still have poor appetite. My appetite has never recovered from chemotherapy, and I was someone that in treatment, I didn't have an appetite. I couldn't taste food, so eating was a chore, even though I used to love eating food. And so now, while I can taste food again, and I can enjoy food, I don't really feel hunger cues. I don't notice my fullness cues. I don't notice when I'm full. I don't really notice when I'm hungry. I just eat at the times that I know that I should eat. And while I do get hunger cues, it just takes a long time to get there. I think longer than most people. And if I have coffee, I won't notice that I'm hungry all day, especially if I have 2 coffees. If I have one in the morning and then one just after lunch, I won't notice that I'm hungry. And I could probably go a whole day with barely eating anything. And I know that coffee affects a lot of people's appetite, but I think it affects mine too much, given that I already have a low appetite, probably because of chemotherapy, because I used to have a big appetite before I started chemo. And so that's something that I really don't like. I want to be healthy and I enjoy eating food. And so I really don't like when I don't have an appetite and I have to force myself to eat, because it reminds me of chemotherapy when eating was a chore. So the biggest side effect I have is still anxiety. And I know I've talked about it a lot recently, but it is, I guess, the biggest issue for me and something that I really want to address and work on. And the reason why I've been struggling with it more is because I've put so much attention and focus on it to fix it. And I want to do that because it actually pulls me from this productive mindset or from trying to reach out and do different things and take positive risks, and makes me want to just stay at home, shut in, not go out and explore and not go out and do different things that I want to do, because those things seem a little bit too scary and I don't want anxiety to control my life that way. And the thing is that I know that I'm high functioning with my anxiety. I know that I'm still studying the degree that I want. I'm still able to work. I can take care of myself. I can take care of others. I can do a lot of things, and it's not really stopping me from doing those things. It's just making the experience so much more painful, and it stops me from maybe, going from 70% potential, like doing things that I want to do, to a 70% if you think of it out of 100. And I know that the anxiety is holding me back. There's like a 30% part of my life that I'm not accessing or not going and reaching out for because of the anxiety. And I know there are other people that are more like 20% or 30%, and they're only able to reach out and live that part of their life. They can only reach that far because the anxiety has squashed and shrunk their life by that much. And so the anxiety hasn't shrunk my life that much. I'd say maybe 30%, but that's still really significant, and that's significant for me, and it makes a significant difference to the experiences that I have. I still have them, but they're just so much more painful. For example, I'll often stress about a situation coming up to it, and then during the situation, and then after the situation, and I'll ruminate about the situation and be very critical about myself. I'm not taking the opportunity to see how I could improve in a positive way. It's a very negative activity. I don't like that anxiety makes me feel small and fragile and panicked all the time. I don't like that it makes me waste my time and make me so indecisive. Recently, I had to go and change my car and get a new one. And the anxiety that I went through in choosing a car, because I like to research things, I like to know what I'm getting, I like to know all the pros and the cons and get a variety of different people's opinions on things, and generally that's a positive trait because I don't waste money very often. I like to get good quality things that will last me a long time and that are well made. But at the same time, it can make me really anxious when I don't know which car to get. I don't know which one is better, and I've think I've made a very reasonable decision, but because I didn't research it for months, or I didn't research it for weeks, because cars are expensive. I want to make sure that I've researched it enough that I feel very confident in the decision that I make. Because I didn't do all those things, I felt really awful when I finally did buy a car, because I felt like I should have spent more time researching it. What if I made the wrong decision? What if I wasted a lot of money? I just have those kinds of thoughts and I feel really bad, whereas other people just make a choice. They don't feel so bad about it. And if it works out, that's great. If it doesn't, oh well, they'll figure it out and then they'll buy something else. And I just need to have that perspective more. I didn't like how indecisive I was, and then how anxious I was. after making a good decision. And another part of it is that I don't like how anxious I am because I don't like the way that I project this anxious, unsure, indecisive version of myself in social situations or when I'm alone. It doesn't feel like that's me because I feel very confident and I feel like I can assert myself in most situations. And when I'm alone by myself with my thoughts, I feel really good about myself and I feel very good about the dreams that I have and I feel very confident in those things. And I really don't care what other people think because I know that I really am happy with the things that I'm striving for. So I don't like when I am an anxious version of myself because it doesn't feel like the true me. But I think I've realized that I think that's also part of who I am because I like to externalize mental health problems, and I think that's a very valuable thing to do, to say, to call anxiety the anxiety or to give it a name, talk about the depression. So that way it's not something that is part of you, it's something that is affecting you like an illness. But for me, I think it's actually important to acknowledge it as part of me, that it is part of my personality, that it is a girl that is, I don't know, if I think about my personality as different women or different girls and I'm able to embody those personalities at different times, that anxious girl, that's also me. And I shouldn't get angry at her. I shouldn't always ignore her or just try to forget about her and just focus on the confident girls or just focus on the assertive girls that I think are the personalities that I feel most comfortable in and the ones that I want to, that I guess I want to be. I want to be those girls and I feel like I am those girls as well. But I'm also an anxious girl at times, and that's okay. And I think I also want to spend more time focusing on my anxiety or focusing on that anxious girl inside of me. Because in recovery and in trying to improve myself, I've really focused on the positive aspects of who I am, the resilient side of me, the gritty side of me, the side of me that will be pushed down and get back up, the one who is confident, the one who just goes for her dreams, things like that. I focused on that and helped build that. But I can't ignore the negative aspects or the aspects that affect my quality of life for the worse. And so I need to focus on that anxious girl. And I think when I was thinking about making this video and I was thinking about anxiety, and when I was writing up kind of a rough script, which I have no idea if I've really followed because I like to ramble a lot, it kind of hit me when I realized that anxious girl is also me. And so there's some reflections that I've had, some epiphanies that I've had, and I think it's gonna help me recover even further and help me progress when it comes to my anxiety and work with her as opposed to against her or trying to shut her away or hide her. I think it's gonna help me get better. I hope everyone's had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and have celebrated any holidays that you celebrate in this time. Please leave your thoughts down below in the comments and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye.